Hello and welcome to the Ghibli Rewatch series of the Overly Animated Podcast, where we'll be going through every Studio Ghibli movie chronologically from the beginning. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Alex Bonilla.
Hello.
And Ali Martin.
Hi.
Yet the Ghibli Rewatch series, join us in rewatching or watching for the first time all the Studio Ghibli movies now that they're available for streaming for the first time on HBO Max in the United States and Netflix in most of the rest of the world. New podcasts every Wednesday as we go through the whole Ghibli catalog. Find all the ways to contact us at overlyanimated.com. I'll be taking you through all these movies as a Ghibli expert, joined by co-hosts with a variety of Ghibli experience. And today it is time for Pom Poko, the highly anticipated Pom Poko discussion. We'll be talking everything about this movie. Spoilers for Pom Poko. We'll only vaguely refer to the other Studio Ghibli movies, but watch Pom Poko and then come back and listen to this podcast. I also want to give a special language warning for this discussion. We will be using a variety of terms, probably, I assume, to describe male genitalia, considering the content of this movie. So you are warned, we'll be talking about biology terms and other related terms. Okay.
That was very smooth, Dylan.
There you go. We'll be discussing both subs and dubs. I've never seen the dub for this movie. I don't think anyone else has, but apparently J.K. Simmons is in it. But primarily, right.
Well, now I regret it, kind of.
I don't know.
And Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who was famous for like a second in the 90s.
Okay, there you go. And we will, so either one you watch, it's fine. We'll be discussing whatever. So watch what you prefer. Okay. Time to get into Pom Poko though. We are in 1994 now. We're back to Isao Takahata. This movie was surprising to me, was a success in Japan, the top domestic movie in 1994. I think at this point, probably any Ghibli movie that comes out is going to be a big success in Japan. We're kind of over the hump of them being a famous studio in Japan by 1994. This is a very strange movie. It's Americans, at least. It prominently features tanukis, which are raccoon dogs. It is translated as raccoon in the both the sub and the dub. But I think technically these are not raccoons. These would be a separate species of animal called tanukis, and the closest way to refer to them in English might be raccoon dog. Honestly, and we can talk about this, I think that this is an extremely difficult movie to translate, and the subs for this movie even were potentially not as accurate as some other movies, just because of the content it's getting into. We can discuss that, though. I think this is one of Ghibli's most heavily environmentalist-themed movies, even among all these other ones we've been discussing. At times, surrealist, featuring gorgeous animation. Pom Poko is definitely going to be one of the most interesting Ghibli movies to discuss, at least from our kind of American perspective. So, this is both of your first experience watching Pom Poko. Alex, what was it like? What do you think of this movie?
Pom Poko is one of the wildest movies I've ever watched. It's like, first of all, like, it's a long movie. Like, you feel the length on this one. But I think because of I've used the word meandering for a couple of Ghibli movies before. I think I used it for only yesterday when I talked about it on Discord, and so the Takahata connection makes sense there. So like it's interesting because the themes that this movie are handling, I think, are treated pretty well, and there's so much to break down in terms of environmentalism, the power of media, the decline in religion, in interest in religion. There's a bunch of different stuff that's dealt with during the movie, and it's that's cool and all, but at the same time, it's all couched in this mockumentary style thing where we're following. Well, okay.
At one point, someone does talk to the camera.
Let's treat the tanukis as real creatures. So this documentary style depiction.
I guess there's a narrator. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that's the thing, right? Like
It's the one who talks to the camera at the end.
Yeah, this movie is so dependent on voiceover describing what's happening to you as opposed to letting the story speak for itself. It like requires that like explanation of what's happening. In part, I think it's because mostly because of the choice to make this seem like a documentary thing where you're following a group of animals over the course of years. But like I think that also contributes to the general feeling that like this is not a movie with a story that feels cohesive or like something that I can really grab onto. And it's not even the fact that they're mythical creatures, because like fantasy is a genre that like you can have connect. I mean, like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or like there's like so many different examples of like fantasy where like there's no way to explain it in real life, but you do get an emotional connection to the subjects in question. Whereas here, I think the problem is that there's like so many different Tanuki characters that like get swapped in and out of this story, and it's hard to like really attach onto one of them and like feel some kind of empathy for it. It's more of a general empathy they're pushing of environmentalism, but like that can only get you so far in a movie that ostensibly is meant to entertain. And I think also like the cyclical nature of like seeing the main characters succeed in something small and it having no effect. They succeed in something small, it continues to have no effect. And I think that's purposeful on the part of the movie, but at the same time, it's hard to watch that for a long time and because it's wearing you down. And even if that is the purpose of the movie, to tell you, look, like this is just human society marching on and the animals are helpless to counter this, like there's not enough there for me to because I'm not emotionally connected to the characters, it's hard for me to really invest myself in their plight, as opposed to something like Grave of the Fireflies, which Takahata did really well in that, in like something as extensive as World War II, but it focuses on two characters, and so like that really emphasizes the feelings of that. So just like to summarize, Pom Poko is a really interesting movie. It's a premise that I can totally get into, but I think that the execution is just really off in terms of like it's purposefully doing something where it's treating it as like something you watch happen without any real hope going forward, and it ends in a way that's kind of that's also like downbeat, but because of the fact that we never really got attached to anybody, it doesn't hit as well as Grave of the Fireflies. So it's just like it's hard to really take this as a movie, but at the same time, I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff you could break down within the movie, but it and the purpose of entertaining, it doesn't really get there.
Okay. Interesting reactions from Alex. Ali, how did you react to Pom Poko? What do you think of this movie?
Well, first, I'm sorry, I have to be that annoying weeb. The plural of tanuki is tanuki, and they are a subspecies of a raccoon dog, so they are real. I did learn a little bit about the folklore in college, and honestly, watching this, I felt like I missed something with all the ball humor. But thinking about it, I think it really is like it's a lost in translation thing that's not going to be able to transfer over to, especially like I feel like the Western hemisphere. Like if you look at animated series from Japan, like Shin-chan. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one, but they have a lot of like ball and you might have to censor penis humor. And I think
that falls under our warning in the beginning. That's fine.
Okay, good. Personally, as a like presenting female American, I never really got the humor behind that. But while I was in Japan, like all the guys and even the girls are like they think it's very funny. And I think in that sense, for this movie, it was supposed to sort of add to part of their charm, because in like legend, Tanuki is supposed to be like mischievous and funny and being like kind of stupid. So it kind of makes sense in that sense. But for me, it also fell flat. And I like what Alex said about how the narration in a way kind of takes like the telling and not showing for me going into a Ghibli movie was also very jarring, but knowing now that it was not directed by Miyazaki also makes a lot of sense. Not to throw any shade at Takahata, but watching it when I did, as you guys know, I was really not into it because of all the ball stuff. Like to me, that's just too much. It was way too much. Like I really like the shape shifting and Master of Disguise themes, and obviously because that's part of their legend or whatever. But I never learned about, like, other than the fact that they have big balls. Like it was never like expanded upon in my studies. So seeing this, I was like kids got to watch this and they thought it was funny, but it didn't flop in Japan, right? You said it flopped in America.
I mean, I didn't include the American reaction in the beginning, but this was never really widely released in America. They kind of just like threw the dub out there along with his next movie. But no, it was a success in Japan.
Okay, I mean, to me, it makes sense. And like Alex mentioned, with the themes of like environmentalism, themes of urbanization, I did expect that, because when you see a Ghibli movie, it's either or like one of two things or both of the things. It's like raising up, empowering strong women, or telling you about the environment and why people suck and why they ruin it. And with that part, I really enjoyed, but I don't know, it didn't land as much for me. I guess in part because it was so realistic and it was a Ghibli movie. I didn't expect it, even though I probably should have, just like looking at the cover art. I do want to watch it a second time because I think I would enjoy it more. But I'm super on the fence, kind of leaning towards I did not like it still as a whole. I think it was done well, all things considered, but I don't know. I'm really iffy about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can get into
I would just
throw people one way or the other on this. Yes, Alex?
Well, I would just comment that, like, of all the movies that we've watched in this watch, I think that this one is one of the ones that's going to benefit the most from a rewatch, just because on first watch, your brain kind of gets like gets a bit hijacked by like trying to understand the folklore of it all.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get distracted from like what like the story and thematic stuff is, because and like understandably you're like, okay, so the Tanuki, they're like using their balls and they're shape shifting. Okay. But like, I think that a rewatch, like especially for these kinds of movies where they throw so much lore at you, you need the rewatch to like get the rest of the story a bit more down pat. So like, if for anybody who's watched it once and is like, oh, I don't get it, I would say like a second watch, I feel very likely to change your view of this slightly.
Yeah, well, that's a good transition into my thoughts. But we also said that about Only Yesterday a lot. We said, on that podcast, Delaney just watched it. She didn't react positively to the ending. Michelle and I were like, having seen it a few times, like, we really love the ending. Here's why. And so, I think Takahata's movies do have kind of that quality, that rewatchable.
Yeah, because like even Grave,
like, yeah, I think so too. Grave, yeah. Mm. And Ali, you got it. Yeah, I think Ali said not expecting it to be so kind of realistic and stuff. I think that is Takahata's trademark, and it's really interesting. Seeing realism told through animals instead of humans. One of the most interesting characteristics of this movie. So I did see this movie along with all the Ghibli movies when I was watching them for the first time like many years ago. And this is never one I really got into, and not one I've really seen since then. I may have rewatched it once since my initial viewing, but this was the first time in a long time. And I think for the first hour when I was rewatching it, I had kind of the same reaction, wasn't super into it. But then around hour 15, I think things really started coming together for me in this movie. And I was really floored by the last 45 minutes of this movie. I was as floored as I've been by some of these big ticket Ghibli movies. Really emotionally affected, really thematically affected by what's happening. I think visually, this movie just kicks it into high gear around then with the ghost, the goblin parade.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a visual spectacle I was super into, and it keeps going, I think, with some of those incredible visuals throughout. But the environmentalist themes, I think it's really well done at the end, and I want to talk about a lot of the reasons why. But I ended up at the end like loving Pom Poko, and I'm really happy because this movie is considered by some people to be one of Takahata's greats. I think like for me, when I think of Takahata's great movies, I think Grave of the Fireflies, Only Yesterday, and Tale of Princess Kaguya. I would put this movie up there now with these ones. I'm in. I'm in on Pom Poko. I'll try to explain why I think everything is really works with this environmentalism. And I also think, like, originally I thought of this movie maybe more as like the Ocean Waves type of movie, where I talked about that last podcast. Like before Ocean Waves, it was kind of like all incredible. You could consider them masterpieces in a row that we just covered on this Ghibli rewatch. And then I think Ocean Waves is like fun. It's good, but maybe not up to that level. But it's it's purposefully. It's kind of their TV, more of a low key release for them. I think Pom Poko for me is now more towards the earlier group of movies. Like I think there's a lot here that is really incredible. I think this is kind of a culmination of a lot of things Takahata's been doing. The animation in this movie is some of the best I've ever seen in any animated movie. It seamlessly blends disparate animation styles together. And I didn't even realize he was doing it, honestly. Like, I kind of understood, but it didn't even stand out to me as impressive until I took a step back. But, like, only yesterday, it has two disparate animation styles throughout, and then at the end merges them together for an incredible ending. This movie does it throughout the entire movie. This is Takahata bringing that to the next step. So I don't know. I'm glad that I'm getting more into Takahata now with this Ghibli rewatch, because now I see him kind of as the different animation style kind of master, in a way that kind of distinguishes him from Miyazaki. I think like he several of his movies combine really interesting styles together, and we'll see in his next movie he's like it's a completely different style. Interested to get into that one again, but yeah, I was really affected by everything happening at the end of Pom Poko. I want to get into its environmentalist messages. To me, that's like the highlight. I mean, that's often our first discussion point in these Ghibli rewatches. But with this movie, I think we talked about only yesterday. Wow, that movie really says it's environmentalist themes, just blatantly, very clear cut. I think this movie, very clear cut as well. Very apparent, very overt themes that it's getting into here.
Yeah.
I just want to comment briefly before we get into the themes. There's one thing you mentioned there where like a minute 15 you felt it kicked in. I find it interesting because in my personal notes, I have a thing there. Like at this point where the masters arrive and lay out their plan, you're thinking this is setting up the movie's finale, but then you move the screen. It's like, oh, you're only halfway through the movie and there's an hour left. So
yeah, that was my thought too.
Yeah, like I can see that it definitely like amps up at that point in the movie. I just it's worrying that you have to get through so much to get there, But I would definitely agree. Like it visually ramps up from there on, especially with the parade stuff. Like that's like obviously them going all out and like showing off what they can do, and being as impressive as possible in that sense. So I'd agree with you there, but like I think that's also like one of the big length effects is that climax is so stretched out.
Yeah, and this is a staple of Takahata. He is known for going over budget and over schedule, and I think his movies are often too long, and I think like he doesn't cut stuff out, and we'll see this through. I think Only Yesterday could have benefited from being a little shorter. I think this movie could have as well, considering I agree I don't super respond to a majority of the movie, but a lot of your kind of story complaints, Alex, I think I ultimately don't really care about the story that they're telling. I think it's in service of the messaging that we get into at the end, and I'm not saying that it's like invalid to care about the story considering it's a majority of the movie. I think that's fair. The state I got into towards the end of the movie is like I didn't ultimately care about the Sokichi versus Gonta sect conflicts and the master journey. And
did you care about the shipping of those two that had the babies?
Sokichi and Okiyo, the epic love story that we tell.
Yes.
No, I didn't.
And that's the thing, right? Like I totally agree that like the theming of this movie is its strength. Now the problem is that if the movie focuses so much on the story aspects, like it feels like the theming loses a lot of its punch. But like if you're able to focus only on that and ignore the hour of other stuff, then sure, this is a great movie.
Let me make the argument. It's in service of the themes. We need to get to a point where we care about the Tanukis.
And I don't think we get there.
I think we get there. I agree we don't really care the Tanuki. Tanukis, I mean, it's not an English word though, Allie, so is it like wrong to say Tanukis?
Kinda, sorta. I mean, if you like look at the wiki, there's never an S after Tanuki. It's like octopi, kind of.
I don't know if that's the example I'd use.
No,
it's like not. A deer, like a
sure, yeah.
Okay. I'll try to say Tanuki. But no, in the subtitles, it's just always raccoons, and it is. And I got distracted. I'm like, they're Tanuki though, right? Like I'm listening, trying to hear them say Tanuki. It was very distracting. I mean, like I don't know. Then I struggled with the translation of this movie, and I can get Allie's take on this, but it's at one point so there's the moment at the end where apparently Allie said this is the narrator, is the guy who talks to the camera at the end.
That's what I assumed, but
I had no idea.
Don't quote me.
Actually, the narration, the voices change throughout the movie, so like it's different. Tanuki.
Okay. Yeah, I had no idea who the narrator
different.
You neither.
Okay. Yeah, I know that the guy at the end is like Sokichi's friend. I read I didn't really track that character. There's like 5 characters who I had a good handle on who they were. Other than that,
I don't remember any of their names. So good on you for.
I remember they said Gonta all the time. I remembered Gonta. The other I had to look up. The other ones I had to look up. But at the end, he like talks to the camera. I think what he's basically just saying is like, "Don't kill us," but it's like really not like it's not like translated like that.
What he's saying is like, "Don't be human," and that's like part of the issue I have with this movie is because I mean, what you guys have been saying, the story hammers down the theme, but it's just. I don't know, knowing what I know now about how terrible people are and how messed up our environment is, I feel like if I saw this when I was younger, it would have hit me harder. But I was just like, I know all this. Like,
yeah, so that's fair.
Is terrible.
So let me
like
talk
also, well, just with the narrator, like the thing is, the movie sends that message throughout. So to have the Tanuki at the end lay it out for you,
I was like really?
It's a little bit insulting to the audience, I'd say. Like, given that the movie for 2 hours has been hammering that message.
To be fair, this did come out like 26 years ago. So back then, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, keep in context of 1994 in Japan.
How bad was the environment in the 90s? Because it's still not so good. But that was like the baby boomer like end era. I guess
it's a different time, but here's the thing. I don't think that yes, the movie has its message, anti-urban sprawl, not caring about the animals as you're developing, right? That's kind of like the main theme I see, anti-urbanization, not necessarily in general anti-urbanization, but anti-careless urbanization without caring about the environment and the wildlife. That's the theme from minute 1 to minute 2 hours, whatever, like minute 120.
Minute 0 to
it's not, it's not like that changes. And yes, at the end he says basically that again, although again, the translation, he's basically saying like, I keep hearing don't forget about us, but stop saying that. Like the ones it's like a privilege if we can be forgotten about and blend in. It's the ones who never aren't forgotten, like who die. Like that's the way it's translated. It was confusing. But
I have to watch that again because I don't remember what he actually said. So.
Yeah, but generally, and it, of course it's jarring and people interact negatively. I'm talking, and by the way, in general, I responded really positively. I understand being like thrown off by this movie. Like obviously I get it. But the point isn't the theme is the same throughout, and I don't know. I don't think you should be insulted by having a theme presented consistently. The reason you keep
that's not the insult. It's a good that the theme is presented consistently throughout the movie. It's bad when a character has to say it out loud, thinking that you have not gotten it from.
Okay,
the
I don't think the point is that he thinks you haven't gotten it. The point is to emotionally drive home what's happening. So this is in the middle of kind of an extremely emotionally cathartic ending to the movie. So the point, like the theme is consistent. It's about emotionally getting you there because clearly we don't care about what the movie wants us to care about. And sure, we can conceptually get on board with like, sure, okay, we should not just destroy these Tanuki homes. How do you? Okay, I don't even know how the pluralization works in that.
Tanuki homes.
Just don't add an S. It's fine.
It's jarring when you have to plural. Okay. But deer homes. Okay. But clearly we can conceptually get on board. But I'm so impressed by the way we have this end. I mean, there's, first of all, to me, the standout scene in the whole movie is when, let's do one last illusion. We're going to take them back to what it used to look like here. I was just floored by the visuals of them changing the entire landscape, and I thought that was really emotionally cathartic. And then that sets up kind of this ending where some Tanuki blend into society, some try to survive how they can, and they reunite at the end. We pan up. We think they've found a spot. It's a golf course. Like, this is, they're really, it's still a developed place. They've still lost their home. They're actually on a golf course. And then, this is like one of my favorite end credits I've ever seen. We just get this shot of Tokyo, and this gorgeous shot of Tokyo as the credits start rolling. And I'm left thinking, wow, this is gorgeous. Tokyo's an incredible city. I visited recently. I loved it. Oh my God, this is one of the most sprawling cities in the world. I feel so like emotionally torn down, considering how much I love it, considering how much I love the diversity and like all the different areas of the place, and visiting and then it's like, this is destroyed so much. That's what you're left with then. And this haunting, gorgeous shot of Tokyo. And that it's one thing to say to the audience, like, okay, we should consider our actions more before we start destroying the environment. But really, we only care about ourselves, and humanity's proven that. And it's another thing to just emotionally affect you and actually maybe make a difference in how you're thinking. And that's the state I was left in, is like, maybe I didn't really care about this whole time, because I am really I'm really torn down and exhausted by the end of this emotionally, and it affected me in a way in which I feel like most of these presentations of this type of theme are only surface level.
I'm so surprised you feel that way, because I felt that way from the get-go. Like, I'm so tired of people and cities and all of this urbanization, and I have been for so long. Like, I go to the city for work. I love the city, but it's like one of the worst things in the world, in my opinion, like any kind of city. Like, I love the convenience because I'm a fat American, but it's disgusting and it's just gross in general for the state of the world. And like, I was so exhausted going into a movie that's about that without like fantastical elements that like Mononoke has or something.
Yeah, and I think different people are going to be at different places with this. I certainly conceptually agree, and I think what I'm trying to argue is that the thing this movie does is it emotionally affects me about this issue in a way that I didn't know I hadn't been affected to the depth of this before. I didn't know that, and I mean, maybe certain people like aren't, and maybe that's why this movie is as affecting, or maybe they take different things away from it. But this is a very specific type of environmentalist theme of urban sprawl. I'm maybe more attached to different aspects of it, but I think it's also the specific place I am. Like having just been to the place where this takes place. Mm-hmm. I think it is very affecting in that regard.
Listen, I lived there for a year, and it still didn't affect me that much.
Yeah, so I mean, the overall argument is like, we need to build up the. It's not about I care about Sokichi, probably the main character of the movie. Yeah, it's about through these people, through these characters, I actually care about Tanuki enough that these themes have room to work their way into your mind and heart at the end.
Yeah, that's definitely.
I would say that's what it's trying to do.
I agree. I don't know. I'm like what is it? I'm desensitized to it at this point.
Well, I'll say, Dylan, you used the word exhausted, and I think that is the aim of this movie, and it's funny because like I feel like in general, like animated movies, like you get, well, I mean, I guess with all movies, right? Like you get the conflict, and then you get a resolution, whereas here, like it's conflict that is ultimately, unfruitful, and they have this last stand where they get to see their old home, at least visually, one last time before it's gone for good, and therefore the end of the movie is them forced to live in the human society. I compare that to something with like, I'm sorry to bring this up, but like Happy Feet is an environmentalist movie.
Oh no, but yeah, that's true.
Well, and like that second half of that movie is like trying to hammer the message of, hey, humans are ruining the polar ice caps, and we need to make the humans notice us. And that movie, it portrays it as a successful effort, but because of the fact that like it is a fantastical solution. Like there's no way that like dancing penguins in real life would ever cause us to actually change our ways because we know how humanity works. It doesn't have quite the same effect as something like Pom Poko, where it's showing you the nature of the machine of humanity that's just going to keep pressing onward no matter what animals would do, even if they had this kind of consciousness to them, like to do all these plans and still fail. So like in that sense, I applaud the movie for taking a bold stance in terms of like, again, like this is speaking to Takahata's realism, right? That like he can commit to a downbeat ending, but to hammer home the realism of the issue.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's an exhausting, depressing ending. I mean, it's I don't think it's like they are celebrating at the end. I think, but I feel like the main state that I'm left with the end is like, I really now understand, but at what cost of the actions of humanity? Like, but at what cost? And I think that's the thing the ending is trying to convey. And, you know, like that Tanuki does talk at the audience. And like, I would say like, it's at a place when you're most emotionally vulnerable, considering the like rampant efforts of the end of the movie to try to get you to care. And I think it's like, it needs all that effort because I think people don't care. And even people that do care, I think it's I think I articulated this, but it wants you to care more than surface level. And so he does talk at you. And I don't think he's saying what's so simple as don't kill us, but he's like, okay, and now he's actually addressing us. That's like the most heightened emotional plea, like the most direct emotional plea. And I would like to know a little bit better exactly what he was saying. But
to me, it felt like it was directed towards children more than anything, because he like also kept bringing up the fact that he was like, like Tanuki who can shapeshift do exist, but you really have to worry about the ones who don't. And I'm like, okay, but this is reality. Tanuki do not shapeshift. They're just animals. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. We're all living in a simulation, so who knows? Like,
it might be true. I definitely think people, especially our culture, considering American media area, are very anti heavily moralistic endings at this point. And so this movie kind of came like direct, like, here's the Captain Planet style. Here's the lesson of the day.
Right.
And I think this movie, you know, it came out more towards the Captain Planet. Here's the lesson of the day time than current. So I think we should consider that. But that's not inherently right. You know, I don't think there's any like inherently intellectually higher state to like not have the moral told to you. I think this movie is trying to do it in a context of enhancing the ending of the movie.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It wasn't a high point for me either, but I didn't like hate it or anything. Like I think it was a part of the ending, and I
see what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that you didn't see it coming off as like directed towards people who are young, though, because it's like I don't know.
I'm left wondering after watching this movie: is this a children's movie?
It's definitely not a children's movie. Like
people die and they're like, we killed humans.
And they show like raccoons bleeding out when they're getting hit by the cars. Like, look, everybody.
I would say the raccoon balls is probably more children's fare in Japan than here. By the way, it needs to be said.
They mentioned that at the beginning, but I don't understand it, especially like girls in Japan. Why do you laugh at that? I don't understand.
I think, as you mentioned, you know, it's like this is a different cultural thing, and you know, we don't really understand. I want to say the sub translates them as testicles and balls. The dub of this movie does not. It calls them raccoon pouches.
Cowards. Cowards.
Joking, right?
That's Disney's fault. Like,
this is why you should not watch dubs. I don't even care. It's terrible.
I really just think this is an impossible movie to dub. Like,
they could have said balls.
But the thing is, even if you include balls, I mean, obviously the way like a lot of us react to the balls here, it's like we just don't get it. Like translating, like saying the word is not enough. We just do not have this context. Let me try to explain the balls here. I have a few quotes from Studio. Let me try to explain balls.
This will be fun.
No, I'm excited because I totally get where it's coming from, knowing the culture. But
this
go
is
ahead.
From Studio Ghibli, the films of Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata by Colin, Odell, and Michel LeBlanc. They say Passion is natural, and the Tanuki show that their natural instincts can only be put on hold for so long. Part of this is manifested in the male Tanuki's most prominent assets, his testicles. Testicles, I didn't need to read it like that. Testicles play an important role in Tanuki mythology, but they are more than just a fertility symbol. They feature in a number of traditional rhymes, one of the most popular of which roughly translates as, Tanuki balls still swing even when there's no wind. Indeed, the kanji characters for testicles are gold and balls in vernacular Japanese, pointing to the animal as lucky or prosperous.
Which is all accurate.
Which is funny because the Tanuki in this movie are neither lucky nor that prosperous.
Right. I mean, I think it's ironic to center this around Tanuki. Probably it's probably more affecting as their place as these sympathetic, trickstery, like symbols of good. I mean, I assume that's like they're just like a positive symbol, maybe, or like a funny symbol.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It's like back and forth because in not mythology, in the folklore, they're seen to be really like mischievous and kind of stupid. But when you like go to temples or sometimes, I guess, I don't know, shrines, they do have the gold balls, and people like will pray to them for certain luck. Like it's like certain specific things, like maybe, I don't know, give me money or something. But I don't know. It's weird. It goes back and forth.
Well, speaking to the comic nature of the Tanuki in this movie, I think that's another barrier for me, and that's something that's like again, like that's just how the folklore is. So like, there's not really a way to change that. But like the Tanuki in this movie are characterized as easily distracted. They debate a lot. They celebrate after every small victory that they get, and so like that kind of action where like it feels very repetitive after a while of like seeing them like talk about stuff and they don't do anything afterwards, or they get dejected easily, they get distracted. So like all of that makes it hard for you to really sympathize with this society, as much as it is terrible that they're losing their land. But like, I can't get attached to characters that like aren't really banding together. So the point where like the finale is like that group splitting up into like three different factions. I think like the ones that like go off into the sea to never be seen again, the ones who like get the chainsaws, and the ones who hope for the TV. So like, just like they never really band together, and that's like something you kind of expect from most movies in the third act, and it just doesn't happen here, which is again like it's a choice, it's a bold choice, but I'm not sure it's one that helps the cause of you getting connected to the characters.
The third act is specifically them splitting up into, I think, even more than three factions. But I didn't have that reaction. I certainly was sympathetic to the Tanuki, and I think like to me, them splitting up is very human. Them not being they really weren't able ever to come together. And part of them splitting up is like, okay, now they're finally going to try and put into practice all these different ways they have of maybe saving themselves, and just nothing is works. Like humans are just too callous, and something like, and like maybe the small thing of their plea to the media does eventually connect in a small way, that they set aside some parks, and like that's the only result that ends up happening. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like supposed to be like some like motivational overcoming. I think we're seeing these different aspects, these different people of them. It's like definitely true that I was never super attached to the specific characters. I think overall I found them very sympathetic, though.
Yeah, I mean, just because they're animals and people suck. Like, to me, that's just a given. Animals do no wrong. They're just trying to live, and people are also just trying to live. But we have the like cognitive brain ability to think very hard about what we're doing, and a lot of the time we just choose not to, and we put ourselves before anything else. And I hate people. That's my hot take.
I mean, supported by the movie.
Yeah.
Here, let me read Odell and LeBlanc's overall assessment of the movie for like the positive take that I do see mixed reaction of Pom Poko. It's not as popular as the other ones, but some people want to consider this in Takahata's great work. So I want to present that perspective from like the scholarly perspective. They say Pom Poko is a glorious film full of joie de vivre and humor, but also mourns a past that cannot be reclaimed. The mixture of folk songs, rhymes, and mythology makes for an exuberant film that offers just a glimmer of hope in that the young rebelling against their parents' greed and myopia may once see a better world. The humanity in Takahata's films is perhaps most apparent when his protagonists are not human, and Pom Poko is a perfect illustration of what animation can achieve and live action can only aspire to. That's their assessment. I think to me that transitions well into the animation as clearly a big reason why they reacted well. Big part of my reaction to this movie. Can talk about the Goblin Parade first. I think that's another thing that's translated ? Goblin Ghost Parade. I've seen Spooking War.
Spooking War.
I saw that. Yeah.
No, it's Goblin Parade is more the most accurate.
Yeah, but they're not goblins. They're
well,
they're Tanuki.
No, they're not. But the imagery
they're trying
is
to be goblins,
like ghosts and ghouls and
ghouls. Yeah, like ghoul. Yeah. I think it's fine. I don't know. It's a long, disparate sequence from the rest of the film, I would say. It's clearly one of the more appealing things, visually at least. To me, by the way, something I didn't mention. Right, once the Goblin Parade starts, we start interweaving these small moments with humans that I think really help the end of this movie. And in the Goblin Parade, we see these two men eating, I think, ramen or something. And
no, they're drinking.
They're
sake.
Drinking while it happens behind them. And,
yeah, they're drunk.
They don't believe it. There's a moment when there's kind of two women and two kids. Which I was like, are these gay moms?
Yeah, they're gay moms. Thank you. Because I was very...
I was like, these are gay moms, right?
Yeah.
I think they were walking into the same house.
They're gay moms.
I guess they could have been two different people. Yeah, it could have been two different families. But I don't know. To me, this is like second movie in a row with Takahata where he's potentially had background queer characters.
Maybe we're just shocked that these movies have multiple women talking to each other. Like,
well, that is surprising.
They looked pretty good.
No, I assumed it was a family, but yeah, we spend like a minute or two with them, and then at the end, during the transformation sequence, let's bring it back to how it used to be. There's this family who is looking at the Tanuki. I found all these really emotionally affecting, all these moments with humans that they brought in.
Especially with the parade, too. You see these people, they're watching it in awe when they're supposed to be freaked out. And I mean, eventually with some stuff, they are freaked out. But they're like, oh, this is meant to entertain us and not to, teach us something. The Tanuki are trying to do this to tell them to, back off. The spirits are angry with you for your behavior or whatever. But they're like, oh my God, I'm so, this is so much fun. It's so cool.
So
and
very modern reaction type. Let's put this on the gram. You could totally see them. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Exactly.
Even at that time.
I thought it was very effective in the way that you're supposed to be mad at them for thinking the way they do, which, I mean, I really liked it. I thought it was successful, but it also made me so angry, and it's supposed to, so job.
Yeah. I was like, duh, of course you'd respond that way. But
I would be freaking out.
Well, I guess the thing is I really enjoy that sequence because the different things it's trying to say. One of them is this decline in the interest in religion, to the point where the Tanuki elders are talking about oh, back in my day they would have given us 5 times the sacrifices for this stuff. Well, in the modern day, people are just not as moved by that, and so when they see the stuff, they treat it as oh, that's fun, well, spooky, ooh, and then they just move on with their lives. That you couldn't really depend on that stuff, and to a lesser extent, seeing the Tanuki try to exploit that religious interest in spooking the people, that's also another thing that you could probably dig into. But also at the same time, later we talk about how because nobody filmed the parade, there's the story's just gonna die down. So also talking about the power of media, right? That causes don't get traction unless somebody chooses to expand it to the world. Obviously now in our day with social media, it's a lot different than it was in the 90s, where only television was considered that mass media. But that idea is also still to this day, where social media has a lot more power in amplifying the causes of the oppressed. So the Goblin Parade is doing several things, all of which at the end of the day are kind of depressing from the point of view of the Tanuki. But at the same time, I enjoy that it's doing these different things primarily through the humans.
Yeah.
Man, if the Goblin Parade was now, people would be live tweeting that.
I'm so mad that you mentioned that because it's so true. They would really they
would believe it. Yeah.
They would be making TikToks dancing behind it. It's terrible.
Where's
but
our
it's good.
modern Pom Poko remake? Honestly, though. No, yeah,
Full in
well,
the forest.
just the animation on display, yeah, in the Goblin Parade is stunning. To me, that and like I said, the transformation sequence, another
Yeah,
stunning
I'm glad you
animation
brought that up
scene.
too. I should have mentioned that, but that was like my one reason initially for sticking around because that was just so impressive that they did it throughout.
Wait,
And
which
it was done
transformation
so beautifully.
sequence are we talking
Just like the
about?
Tanuki going
The
back and
one
forth.
final mirage of, but no, the two. Okay, so let's get into the broader. In broader,
That was
those
what
are
I was
two.
referring to.
Those are two specific scenes, and in general, you may not it may not fully register because of how seamlessly it's done, but there are different animation styles at play. Here's my last quote I have from Odell and LeBlanc. They say the film uses the animation process to portray the complex way in which the Tanuki exists through metamorphosis. We are told early on that the Tanuki are naturally bipedal, only reverting to quadrupled form when humans are present. In the I don't know if that's how you pronounce that word. Quadrupled state, the Tanuki
Quadruped.
quadruped.
Yeah.
The quadruped state, the Tanuki are animated to perfectly match their familiar real-life appearance. Once bipedal, they are portrayed in a number of distinct styles, from stylized, obviously anime characters, to traditional woodblock representations, to full-blown human form. Clothes come and go depending on the circumstance of the situation, often changing in the blink of the eye. The tired or scared Tanuki reverts to its non-human look very quickly, so it's imperative to be vigilant at all times. What marks the animation in Pom Poko is the way in which the film so effortlessly segues between these states, from naturalistic to stylized anthropomorphism. Yes. We see them when they're animals, extremely realistic, photorealistic animation of Tanuki. They go from that to, when they're standing like humans, when they're more anime looking, to when they're like people. It's kind of a different, and even when they're in their bipedal form, there's kind of different ways that displays.
Like when they're really like whimsical and happy, they look very simplistic.
Yeah, like they end up looking pretty cartoony when they're like in their comic state, which makes it all the more like freaky when at the end like they're dying and you get those two in their comic form. You're like, well, I guess we're no match for the humans after all, and then it just cuts to them in their realistic form,
like actually dead.
So like,
that's pretty
with
jarring.
like nothing in between. So definitely different animation styles are used, and I think there are places where it's used effectively. Yeah,
I'm not sure I've seen another film that blends styles like this through the entirety of its run.
Yeah, no way. Like in Ghibli, you do see it happen like maybe once or twice. Like I can think of like Howl's Moving Castle is something where it happens a couple times, but this like it does it for 2 hours basically.
Yeah, I think like it's easy to overlook how visually impressive this movie is. One of the most visually impressive Ghibli movies.
Definitely.
In the modern day, we'd compare it to like Spider-Verse, right? Like using like differently animated characters in the same span. But the fact is that that doesn't happen very often in animation history.
Yeah. Japan has just always been on another level, honestly.
And at this point, it's still all hand drawn the way they're doing it too.
Like what in the 90s?
We're approaching that breakpoint of moving somewhat digital with Ghibli, so we'll get there.
Well, they use a little. I think they use live action for like a brief second, and they also like do like video game style.
They have a video, yeah, that's true. Yeah, they do.
So,
that was
like they also experiment with that as well.
I want to go back to like the environmentalism imagery too, because like in the beginning when it shows how like they're cutting the mountains out and they have like this image of a leaf and like little tractors eating up the leaf.
I love that shot.
A lot of the shots in the beginning too. Well, just like the imagery of urbanization is just chef's kiss, very done well.
And like right after that is like the human gods, and they're like playing with the buildings, like
that too.
Toys, like just really stamping on like humans control the world.
It's very heavy in like East Asian religious imagery too.
Yeah. Just a lot of these really impressive visual scenes. I want to go back and just watch for those again, honestly. It's, on the environmental, the last thing about the environmentalism front is this takes place, I guess it's more of a setting. So this takes place in Tama, which is like right outside of Tokyo, I think. It's about the Tama New Town development where hundreds of thousands of people like live from, and there was nothing there, and then they just developed this massive like hill into this big suburb in Japan. And like we start the film in the 60s, I think, when it's starting, and then in the 90s where most of the movie takes place, where they are continuing expansion, I assume. I don't know. You could. I want to read more into this, but I think our next film we're going to be talking about, Whisper of the Heart, also takes place in Tama Newtown. So we are going to kind of see we see Ghibli. We see different things. Like, it's a very negative depiction here, and then we just see the very human perspective. I think later, a very human-centered story. I think that's kind of why you have to take it outside the human perspective in this movie and tell it from the Tanuki, because when you tell the story from humans, it's just going to all be about humans and what humans are doing. And so, like, it is very powerful. I mean, I know it's like something that's done a lot now, and Pixar has kind of just done all these movies that are told from animal perspectives, but there's something
and like, it's been done by Disney since the 30s, so like, it's just an animation tradition to do this.
I'm just reading a little bit about this city. It was made because people were having too many babies, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they mentioned that in the movie too.
Yeah.
But it is in Tokyo. It has a lot of history. I'm bored already, but
yeah, no. So I think like there's putting the perspective, and I don't know if there's another Ghibli film that is so non-human of a perspective, but putting all this storytelling through the Tanukis and just building up this society and having the narrate, like, it's all just a lot to try to establish this non-human perspective. Which
that movie really about the cats, does that have any environmentalist themes at all? Because I've never seen it.
That's in the grouping of movies that I have not frequently revisited. So we will see when we get there.
We'll find out eventually.
Cat Returns, yeah.
That's the only other movie I can think of that has like a huge animal perspective.
That's true.
Well, saying something for the human perspective, though, like, when you compare this to something like Mononoke, right? Like, that's like a human perspective movie about environmentalism. But like, they're like, the main characters are shown as having effect on how people treat the land. Whereas compared to something like Pom Poko, where like it's purely from the animal perspective, you're left with the powerlessness that, like, okay, these main characters, no matter what they do, they're not going to be able to do something. So like, it's a different aim. I personally connect more to like seeing somebody make the change, but like, this is another way to appeal to emotions by showing what happens if no one intervenes.
I'm glad you brought those comparisons up in that way too, because now thinking about it, as someone who praises Mononoke, I feel like maybe Pom Poko does at least express the disparity of like animals suffering in their environments in a much better way than Mononoke does, because of how realistic it is. It should go without saying.
We'll see when we get to Mononoke. Yeah, I traditionally, I felt like I would have been more on the side of like seeing kind of change implemented, being more affected by this, but I just really responded to this type of storytelling this time, so I'm kind of interested to compare it maybe to Mononoke when we get there.
Yeah.
Other random things that we haven't hit on. The Goblin Parade, we had a bunch of cameos from Ghibli characters. We don't get this a lot in these movies. In the beginning. So it's the if you're gonna go back and look for it, there's like they're practicing, and then we transition right into the actual parade. It's like during that transition, right in the beginning, we get Totoro, Kiki, Porco, and young Taiko.
It really is like a
very
split second,
very quick, yeah.
No, I really need to rewatch. This is depressing.
You could just rewatch that. So you have to pause it to find it. But they're there. It's very not a Ghibli move. And some other things. Some ending scenes we haven't talked about. Definitely want to highlight the scene of so Gonta is the warmongering Tanuki, and he takes his team at the end. He has a standoff with the police, and he starts beating down policemen with his testicles. That's a scene in this movie.
Wait! I think right before that, though, I do want to briefly mention we get the
how dare you move away from me bringing up this scene?
Well, no, this is leading up though. But like before that, his gang is there blocking off the police, and you have both the hippie imagery of people tree hugging combined with the eco-terrorist move of chainsawing a wooden policeman. I'm just saying that is a good blend of the two schools of how to oppose social change.
That's just me. Both of them are me.
And then the other one is fighting them with your balls, right?
Right. I mean, if you have that option, that is a good third.
No.
Yeah, in general, I want to say like the one thing I knew about Pom Poko going in is magic balls, right? So like if I'm going in with that, I'm like, we're not actually using the balls.
Actually, there weren't that many balls, right? It's really not that much.
Like there's a scene. There's a scene.
Throughout the whole movie.
There's like 15 minutes of balls in this movie.
Yeah, there's the one scene where he shows that he can do it from his balls with the carpet, and then later, like, there's a prominent shot of a tanuki enlarging his balls to become a wrinkly frog that he rides. But like
during the Goblin Parade, they make their balls into like giant pumpkins and stuff like that.
They make it into a bridge. They make them into like parachutes. They use them throughout the movie. And
the parachutes is in this finale scene, which I would agree. Once we get to the finale, it's like, okay, finally we're using this to its full effect. And it was interesting to see policemen being trampled by squishy balls.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, that's like the most effective. Like, if you're gonna go protest, just throw your balls in the police faces.
Yeah, Pom Poko's really tapping into modern times with that.
It kind of is, actually. You know what? I like it more now, but like, still, I hate it. It's too many balls.
I mean, Allie, honestly, though, I know a lot of people are going to react this way, anti the ball. Like, is there more to say about it, or is it just like an emotional anti kind of ball reaction? Like, is it like actually bad, or is it just like
no? It's not actually bad. Again, it's really a culture thing. Like, I don't actually take too much issue. Just personally, I was uncomfortable, and
it's like definitely a culture thing. You could argue though that it comes from like a misogynistic culture, and that's the breeding ground. I didn't want to
go there, but Japan is very chauvinistic still. Yeah. They have been for a long time. I think that is part of it, but it's mostly like bodily humor. Like, in America we have fart and poop jokes all the time, which I also hate, but sometimes I laugh, and
Well, if we briefly want to go into the gender treatment of this movie, I did find it interesting that like we never really get an explanation for like how the female tanuki do it, whereas like we dedicate a whole scene to how the males do it.
I think it's all men using the balls.
Yeah, no, they don't have the balls, but there was a scene showing
they can shapeshift. And
they can shapeshift, yeah.
And we never really get it.
Is the shapeshifting innately connected to the balls?
No.
I don't think so, right? It's a
maybe not.
There's the women, they're like, they can shapeshift too, and they like lead them.
The master shapeshifter is Osho, Oroku. Yeah, Osho.
I don't remember her name, but she's
Osho and Oroku are the two old ones. Yeah.
Yeah, and like we get a scene of a voiceover. It's like the females were just as good as the males at shapeshifting,
but they're jump roping the whole time.
The grandma is really fun. Her opening scene is great because like it gives you the impression like, okay, like she's like the leader around here, and she gets them to shut up and stuff. But unfortunately, that kind of fades out through the rest of the movie. Like she kind of gets like on an equal footing with the other older elder. So like that was a little bit disappointing, but she's one of the few characters I liked when she got time. But yeah, so in general, this is one of the more stereotypical movies I've seen in the Ghibli catalog in terms of male versus female compared to like more progressive depictions we've been able to see.
I think in the fact that they're animals also they're not going to try to raise up female animals.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we got to make sure that they're female because they got breasts and
that too.
Yeah, I think they're just portraying the society. They're trying to portray a typical society as like an entry point to the humanizing of them.
I did just think of a hot take though. There's a lot of media that portrays like female genitals and never male genitals, but in this, it's flipped on its head.
Wow.
Yeah, we don't see a lot of balls in America. I mean, I think people respond negatively to them, but maybe it's our uncomfortability with
it's equality, finally. Need more balls in media.
Yeah, once we get a lot of balls in American media, that is
definitely
equality.
Part of the problem though. That's why like we're, the opposite of desensitized to seeing balls, and that's why it was very I don't know. I reacted the way I did because we don't see it often. And the way that it's used here is just so wild and often.
And like, even if there was no balls in this movie, this still would be the horniest Ghibli movie so far. Because
it's mating season.
Yeah, there's like multiple love scenes.
That shows a kiss. Like no Ghibli, like there's maybe three other that I can think of.
Does this count as one of the few kisses?
Yes!
A kiss followed by them
between
they do the nasty.
Sokichi and Okio, is that the kiss?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they have
that's
4
the true
babies. It is.
The thing is, Sokichi, I think at the end, Sokichi is the one that turns into a human, and then he's reunited with all the rest of them, and Okio is one of the ones that stays behind. That's so tragic.
Yeah, she has to take care of the babies. He's not paying any child support. It sucks. I don't like it. I thought that they would all live together.
Maybe he is dropping off payments as he earns his salaried job.
Shokichi is like a character
so
that
he's
like
the main character.
Right,
probably.
right. And like I figure he's like the closest to a main, but at the same time, like it does get kind of confusing, like what his driver is at times. There's one scene that stood out to me that I was a bit confused by, where like they're talking about different proposals, and like he brings up like, hey, we could like share the resources, become like a communist society, or like rescue the captured, and then immediately Gonta is like, no, coup, I need to take over the government right now.
But then that also like
and then
in 5 seconds.
It just like fizzles out and nobody does anything after that. But like they criticize Shokichi for sounding like a human, and like at the beginning of the movie there's like a brief scene where he's like, I watch the humans closely so I can understand what they do, and he like turns into a soccer ball and stuff. So like there's like that like sort of the through line that like Shokichi especially is connected to humans compared to the other Tanuki, but it never really, like, it doesn't feel like it does anything substantial with that, aside from, I guess, the finale of like him deciding to be among the ones that turn into humans.
Yeah, and by the way, I think the reason that we see them drop their plans and they always kind of end up partying and getting sidetracked is because I think in the mythology they are just like hedonistic creatures. That's just like what they do. It's like what Tanuki do.
Yeah.
So I think it makes more sense with the mythology backing of the characters.
Child support.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you're right. At the end, I was thrown off by that being Sokichi. He's the one who's the human. But it's just like they both have their different aims, and none of them really work. I think like the elder grandma is the most prominent character other than Sokichi, and I mean Gonta's name checked the most, so I like knew who he was.
I'm gonna assume that's who JK plays in the dub.
I don't think so.
That would be a good guess. No, it is not.
I don't think so. I think it's some other. It's a character who I had no idea who they were, so I didn't. Other than the 5 I wrote down here, I really don't know.
Gonta is voiced by Clancy Brown, who voices a lot of villains. So you know, that's a
he's
good
Long
choice.
Fang. There you go. Yeah.
So at the beginning of the movie, when they're fighting each other, do they I glossed over it. Do they come together because like, hey, the humans are destroying our environment? Like there are 2 Tanuki clans, right?
Yeah,
right.
I think it's Sokichi and Gonta, and then Grandma brings them together. Like, hey, the humans are gonna kill us all. This is dumb. So yeah.
Okay, so it was that those 2 were the people, or rather Sokichi and Gonta were the 2 like.
I think so. Yeah, it takes a little bit to get into the storytelling that we're doing, but yeah. Another kind of plot, I guess, is we send these 3 people out to try to find the masters of the master transformers.
Yeah, and then there's that other family that does transform into humans, like all together, like that live in the really big house. And it's like a scene out of a K drama or a J drama rather. Like they're in their kimonos and they're like, "Oh, don't leave me." He's like, "I have no choice," and he's like a beautiful man, even as a Tanuki.
Yeah, we get the other than Tama, we also have a few scenes that take place in Shikoku. Which we interestingly just saw in Ocean Waves. That's where Ocean Waves takes place in Kochi and Shikoku. I didn't even know about Kochi or Shikoku, but now I know from these 2 movies. There's a whole subplot of the guy that's sent there falls in love with the chief's daughter, and they have a family, and he has to leave them to go back. Yeah.
Oh, okay, now I get it. I thought I don't know what I thought, but that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, there's like 2 scenes.
There's the elder the guy who went off to search for the master, and he came back saying like, yeah, he actually died like 40 years ago.
Yeah, that was the second guy who was
that was the second guy.
Different master.
And he comes back and it's like, I've only been gone 3 years. How did everything change? But the main thing I want to bring up, this is right before like what you describe as like the big scene where like everything is visually changed for one last time. But like he says something like, what would it prove to do something like that now? And I think it's Granny says, nothing, but it will be amusing. Yeah. And like to me that kind of like signifies how a lot of the this movie feels because like a lot of it is like tricking the humans, and like I get like from their perspective, they're like we're gonna scare them off, but from our perspective, from the human perspective, it's like no, there's raccoons, they're like doing it for fun and stuff, and it's not gonna do anything, and that is how the movie proceeds. But it's just funny like to have it like boiled down to like that line, like yeah, we know it's not gonna do anything, but it'll be fun.
There is also a line earlier in the movie where they're like, it was so much fun, like messing with them. Like I kind of assumed it was to scare them, but maybe in a lot of
I think that the backing of all this Tanuki stuff is that they're these hedonistic tricksters. So like that's kind of their motivation for a lot of this. But
and so are the foxes apparently.
The well, again, we'll come back to the fox in a second. But yeah, no, that at the end, Alex, when they do the one last illusion, they've given up at that point. It's over.
Yeah,
they've lost, and that is it's part of what I tried to describe in the beginning of like emotionally wearing you down, and like it's nothing works. Nothing they do works, and then they just give up. But they're like, we're these happy creatures, so we're gonna do one last thing to make us happy, and then we'll try to survive how we can. It's frustrating. I found it part of the kind of the emotional appeal at the end of the movie.
Is this the equivalent of like the Titanic where those dudes are playing the music?
Yes, it is. Yeah, that's what it is.
It's true.
We have foxes. We have a scene when we go into Tokyo, and
fox human design was like wow, like that's a character design. Like I that's gonna stick with me.
What about I don't know if the attractive lady who tricks the policeman, the raccoon lady that hurt.
Well, that one was good too. Yeah.
No, the dude who looks kind of sort of like androgynous.
Yeah, and like the eyes are like coming down, like
the fox guy.
Yeah.
Like
the eyes are coming down like almost vertically at some point.
He has eyeliner on,
pointy nose.
Not eyeliner, eyeshadow.
Yeah, he's interesting, and we have this whole plot about Wonderland, the theme park too. Parallel Disney Sea and other things in Tokyo, probably.
No, Universal. Oh no, wait, that's not Tokyo, but still.
Yeah. I don't know if it's in that direction or not. But,
no, it's Kyoto.
The Disney Sea or whatever, but in general, theme parks around Tokyo, so I think it's playing on that. But yeah, there's a whole thing, and the fox, and look, there's probably too much going on here. I think so. The foxes, I think, were kind of fun, and it's fun because they get mentioned a lot as the other people who can shapeshift, and then you do end up seeing them. And you see that they've just resorted to trying to blend into society, and that's kind of depressing in its own right. Yeah.
They also mentioned, and some cats can shapeshift. Like, ooh, we're gonna get a cat person, yeah, and we never got a cat. We never got a cat person.
That's the most depressing part of the movie. No cat person. I guess foxes not that. They just look like a human though, right? And then it would just turn back into a cat, but it still look like a human.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the last thing I wanted to bring up. Any other parts of the ending? Oh, okay. So another, I think, emotionally affecting scene is the non-transforming ones. They just give up and they go on like a pleasure cruise to their death.
Yeah, that's like a real weird scene.
I didn't know how to feel. I like kind of wasn't paying attention to a lot of it, but it kind of made sense. Like they're just fed up with everything. Yeah. I guess, right? Is that what it's supposed to be?
They gave up and they're like, okay, let's party. We'll die.
Yeah, like the setup is that while they're like preparing this stuff, the oldest sage has like organized this cult.
Oh yeah, he has another sect. Yeah,
for like the non-transform. It's like, well, we can't do anything, so we'll just dance our life away. And so then like the culmination is the ship thing where this is a good testicle scene where they stretch out his testicles into like a really giant circle and then turn that into a boat somehow. But
it's a testicle boat.
Listen, I will appreciate that they're like using everything to their advantage, but like stop it.
It's very reminiscent of like seeing like the boat from Road to El Dorado, like going on with all the gold.
Use your tail. Why does it have to be the balls?
That's the most stretchy thing. Apparently, you can just turn it into anything.
Makes no sense.
It's water resistant.
The initial, my favorite is just the initial scene when it's like they're on this carpet and it's like, did you know this is my balls that
like
you're
that?
Sitting on?
Really,
I think that's still the best.
Yeah, it kind of is. I laughed really hard, but I was also very disturbed. They were just sitting on his balls the whole time.
Well, so with that ending, I think around then also like after after the gang gets killed off. While that's happening, there's also like the some of the dead ones join up to this giant head, and they like bounce around on the highway and like start like breaking cars.
Yeah, I think that's Gonta's last stand, I think.
Okay.
And then they die because they get hit by a truck, and they're like, "Oh, we never stood a chance."
So that's meant to be literal. Okay. Because like it was so close to like the ship thing, I was like, okay, is this like some kind of metaphor?
I mean, I think
like,
that's literal too.
I mean, yes.
I'm sorry, I have to go back to the balls. I think I realized my huge grievance is I want to know, does it hurt? Because like. Oh. That's the problem I have with it. Like, there's no way.
I guess not.
Well, the thing is, like, I battled with this too last night because it's like, on the one hand, like, in order for it to stretch, it needs to be like rubbery. So you obviously you wouldn't be able to feel anything to have that kind of stuff. But on the other hand, like, if you did feel it, can you imagine the pain every single time you need to like shapeshift into something?
Like, don't you also have to be able to feel it to be fertile? Is that not how it works?
I'm not sure about the science there, but also just when they're getting hit by the policeman, I did notice on second watch that some of the policemen are beating the testicles and they deflate at some point. So I think that there is some feeling, at least to the point where like if you hit it enough times, they begin feeling and like lose their volatility, so to speak. So
did you notice anything else about the testicle physics in the movie, Alex?
I noticed that like it's some like they like turn into inflated balls, but then they like change it to parachutes above them. So like I'm curious about like how like it like turns around to do.
Are you looking at notes, or is this off the top of your head?
This part is off the top of my head. I'm just like trying to remember all the balls.
So some of your ball talking points were written down though.
Right. Like
okay.
Yeah.
That's good note taking on the balls. Yeah, thank you. Any other ball notes you want to get out there?
I mean, I already mentioned this, but the wrinkly frog is the best usage of the balls in this movie because like that's how balls actually are. The scrotums are wrinkly, so it makes sense that it turns into something wrinkly like a frog. So
if you can transform it though, you could get rid of the wrinkles.
I mean, sure, but that feels like cheating.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe Tanuki balls are not wrinkly. Are all balls inherently wrinkly, Alex?
Yes, I think so.
I mean, I don't. Well, again, like we're talking about the scrotum, not the balls themselves, but like the covering.
They're stretching their scrotum, right?
Right.
Not the actual balls.
They're not
the balls
aren't.
So I don't think it would hurt because the balls.
I thought they were stretching every part of the like penis
so you
ball
think like the
situation.
Actual ball is also getting larger. I mean, that's possible.
Does the ball have to be part of the structure they transform something into?
Apparently,
like an eye or something.
Thank you, listener, for surviving through this tangent.
Yeah, okay, that's the end of this discussion. Okay, there you go. Alex, any final comments on Pom Poko?
It's a very cartoonish movie. One thing I did note in the intro is like when you're introduced to the raccoons being able to transform whenever they want, like you get like them like taking on like samurai and shogun and sumo wear, like just like all the stereotypes of Japanese fighting all in one scene, and like that continues through the rest of the movie where like when you get into cartoonish mode, like they really double down on that. And so but again, like they mix the styles enough that it's survivable throughout the movie. And in general, this movie, like it's funny, right? Because like it is very cartoony, but at the same time, as we've discussed for like half the podcast, it deals with serious issues in such a defeated way, almost like they're not going to change this by the end of the movie, and you're just going to have to watch it all fall apart. So it's a very complicated movie to really to break down and watch. So like in spite of all our ball talk, I think that this is a movie that's going for some very serious messages. At least to me personally, it doesn't fully succeed, but I can see the angle it's going for, and yeah, it's just it's a movie that I had fun talking about, much more fun talking about than watching, if that makes sense.
That's because you had a lot of notes on balls already.
I only had the frog line. Everything else was about like how like the media is being used, and like how like the no face stuff was pretty fun and very long.
No face. We're not getting him for a little bit.
You had a lot of ball talking points. Not all of them were written down. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
That music where like people are going hey. Like gets used several times in the movie. In general, the musical choices in this movie are like way weirder than I remember. Like even only yesterday, like it uses that like Hungarian music for a brief moment.
That's true.
But like Takahata loves his going off the wall with the music choices, and I respect that.
This is supposed to be weird, so I think he's got to be
right, and that's like where I'm at the end of the day. Like I with animation, I love movies that go for like that go.
Yeah, I feel like this should be in your wheelhouse, just to assume.
Right, like and like I love weird premises or like stuff where you're trying to like fit human themes into something so fantastical like this, which is why like I would like to defend it, but like I can't get all the way there without like not being able to have as much fun with the main characters as I should be, because like this is going for comedy and I wasn't laughing that much. I was just more like, oh, like that's weird. Like I enjoyed the surreal parts of this. I don't think the humor lands as much. And that combined with like the character stuff, like the theming, like while I can see what it's going for, it doesn't hit me as much as I would hope for. So like it's just like there's all the ingredients are there, and I for whatever reason the soup didn't I didn't like the soup. So like that just I think that just happens sometimes. But I really. Takahata is a director that I'm really growing to love just for the swings that he takes in each of his movies, and I think that even if they hit or they don't hit, I'm very glad to watch these movies just to like have more in my more expanding my mind as to what animation is capable of, and like the ceiling and the floor of those efforts, Yeah.
Okay. I won't. I thought you were going to say something you could tie to balls at that, but I'm glad you didn't. Yeah, no, I agree. Expanding what animation is capable of. I think we talked about
Oh, expanding. I get it.
Expanding. Much like the okay, anyway. Allie, final Pom Poko thoughts.
So, I mean, you guys pretty much covered it, but I think as often as it happens when we have discussions on these podcasts, I really need to reconsider a lot of my initial hate, but I also, after just watching it a few days ago and sitting on it, I think I like it more after ruminating on it. I don't know how high I would put it on the Ghibli list, but I also think Takahata is a director I've initially not really had a lot of feelings towards, well, at least not regarding films like Grave of the Fireflies, because that was just too much. But I think he is pretty underrated and not known enough, which is not so good, but I hope to watch more of his movies. Like, I don't remember if I've even seen Only Yesterday or Kaguya yet, but yeah, I'm definitely going to after this. I don't know. I'm still kind of on the fence about this, but I definitely am more positive about Pom Poko after talking with you guys about it and also just thinking about it before we had this discussion.
I think Grave of the Fireflies needed more balls in it.
No!
I think that's maybe that would have saved them if they had some expanding. Oh my god!
Balls. Wow!
It needed even more of the kids arguing with each other about what to do next and then not doing anything. It needed more of that.
I do like your take that it's very like if we had Pom Poko now, like and the police. I don't know if you guys are protesting the police, don't use your balls, please. If you listen to this, unless they're like balls that are not attached.
Good resource,
And make sure everything is recorded because nobody believes you when stuff isn't recorded.
Yes. Live tweet everything. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the movie. Yep.
TikTok spraying the cops with their own pepper spray.
Okay, because that's a thing apparently. Yeah. There's a lot of police stuff I think in this movie.
Yeah.
There's also the changing to the woman.
Can we say that this film is Antifa?
I think this movie is anti-police and all other humans, based, so that is included. And
okay, good.
Especially anti the structures of society that are contributing to to the destruction of habitats, which police are apparently a part of. Yeah.
Considering that, I now rate this movie higher. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah, so I was happy to revisit Pom Poko here because I had a great experience with it, and I do think it's the type of movie it might play better on multiple more rewatches, like Takahata's other movies, and I want to revisit again just for the visuals, just to see if I have a similar emotional reaction. Happy to have taken, a movie that one of the few Ghibli ones I hadn't really had as thought about as much, and gotten into it a lot here. So I think that was.
Also, I'm sorry. I think I was also shocked when you were like, it's very Japanese, so we need your take. And then initially it's just balls in your face. I was like, is this Japanese?
Do you agree that it ends up being like incredibly culturally, like not in like, it's like in a very specific way, but it's more, and maybe it's more like hard to translate to Americans versus specifically cultural Japanese, but I think probably there's a lot we take for granted in here.
I think you're right in a certain sense, not really in like the environmental.
Yeah, I think those themes translate well
because it translates all across, but like especially with at least the year that it takes place in the baby boom that happened in Japan. I don't know if that happened in that year anywhere else, but I mean, I'm assuming it's all kind of connected, but especially with the balls, it's totally very hard to translate. And culturally.
I think that I give American audiences more credit, and I would think that they would get. I mean, I think people can get over the balls. Like, I think that that's not something that should be as big a problem. But
judging by our discussion here, I don't know about.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, we last. How long is this?
I don't think you can get over
about
it.
Like 70 minutes before like really getting into the balls. But also, I'll say like I think that the Japanese part of this is that the traits of the Tanuki main characters can't be messed with because they come from that folklore, but like because you're kind of limited in that like affects like how much you can do with this.
I think that's a hard part to translate is understanding the motivations of them, and the ball stuff, just generally how the Tanuki are behaving. I think all that's very cultural.
Yeah.
So that part I would agree with. Like that's probably something that gets lost.
I was just definitely expecting like a lot of, I don't know, people like praying and in temples and I don't know, like more culture than just folklore, but I definitely see where you were coming from.
I guess it's not like weeb culture. It's not like Shinto culture. It's like weird, like different like folklore type
mythological culture, which I didn't really get to study a lot because my college program sucked, but it's okay.
That's a fun thing to think about, like how Totoro deals with like the spirits and like how reverential you should be of them.
I think
versus
Totoro's
something like,
a little more
this,
into the Shinto side.
And like this is more like like people don't care anymore. Like let's just have fun with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect to that. I'm glad you brought up a few times. I'll look for that
one
too in future. So let us know your reactions to Pom Poko. What you thought of the balls.
Please.
What you thought of the environmentalists.
Genuinely curious.
Find all the ways to contact us.
Especially, actually, if any Japanese people are listening to this, tell us what you think.
Yeah.
Other favorite movies involving raccoons. Maybe you can talk about Over the Hedge a little bit.
Oh my god.
I don't think so. I mean, we could. But
what other movies have raccoons in them?
Oh, well, Over the Hedge was the only movie I had in my mind. So.
That's the only one I could think of.
Tanuki only, no raccoons. Come on.
Okay, we can talk Super Mario Bros. 3.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mario.
yes.
There's some, I think there's probably Tanuki in.
They need to add balls to the costume. It's a Japanese game. Get with the times.
Yeah, they did take the balls away. Mario doesn't have giant balls when he becomes a Tanuki.
Them.
The nut job. That's a raccoon.
Okay, all right.
Okay. Next up, Whisper of the Heart. Very different movie. No ball talk coming up in there. Let's get it. So we got it out of our system here. That's it. No, I don't think it'll apply to any other Ghibli movie. We'll see.
Guardians of the Galaxy. That's a raccoon movie.
Okay, there you go. What if he's really a Tanuki in Guardians?
Oh
of the
my
Galaxy,
god,
not
please. And that's why he can talk.
That'd be better. Yeah. What if he starts transforming in the next one?
I mean, Rocket would definitely say balls a lot.
He would say balls, yeah. Okay, we should suggest that to them. Okay, that's it. We'll see you for Patreon too. Patreon.com/overly animated. Thanks to all our current patrons. Special, I don't even know where it is. Especially our patron of the podcast, Hugh, and Hugh, who supporter of the Ghibli Rewatch films, will get Hugh's ball stakes. No, I don't think so. I don't think we'll get anyone's ball stakes. And thanks to our patron executive producers Ryan, Steve, Alex, Beatrice, Hugh, Michael, Needle, and Phoenician. Back for Whisper the Hearts. Also excited for Yamada's coming up as the next Takahata film.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.